Well, in this session, I'm really excited to be able to talk to you about a new capability that we here at VMware are developing called fault tolerance, or FT, that takes high availability to the next level. By now, you're, of course, familiar with VMware HA, or high availability. With high availability, if there's a hardware failure, the affected VMs are intelligently restarted onto another safe piece of hardware. With fault tolerance, protection against hardware failures becomes even better. So in this case, in the event of a hardware failure, fault tolerance will provide zero downtime, zero data loss to your applications, enabling you to protect your most critical applications that require continuous uptime. So before I show you how to set it up, let's talk a little bit about how it works. So when you enable fault tolerance, or FT, for virtual machine, it creates a secondary VM that mirrors the execution state of the primary VM you want to actually protect. Think of it as a pair of VMs that are running more or less in lockstep. In the event of an unexpected hardware failure that causes that active primary virtual machine to fail, the secondary, or formerly passive VM, immediately picks up where the primary VM left off and continues to run, uninterrupted and without any loss of network connectivity and/or transactions. So the best part is that, unlike traditional clustering software, fault tolerance is incredibly simple to set up, and it doesn't need to be configured at the application level. So it works for any application, whereas clustering was only applicable to those cluster-aware applications. So now let me show you how to set it up, and then we'll talk a little bit through how it works. We'll actually show you. You'll notice over here in the left inventory pane that I have a data center set up with two clusters. Within the first cluster, AppDev01, I've got several VMs. For the sake of this exercise, let's just go ahead and assume that this VM is going to be the most important VM in my environment, and I want to give it the highest level of protection possible. So you'll notice currently that FT is not running, and there's no indication that FT is running. So VMware FT is so simple to configure that with a few mouse clicks, I can simply select the VM and enable FT protection. Let me go ahead and demonstrate that to you now by enabling FT for this particular VM. So I right-click on the VM, select fault tolerance, I turn fault tolerance on. It's going to ask me for confirmation. I say yes, and you'll notice down here that fault tolerance is in the process of being enabled. So once I've finished enabling fault tolerance for this virtual machine, it automatically creates a secondary virtual machine using vMotion technology, so the primary VM can be live and running during the process. Once that secondary VM is created, the primary VM starts recording execution and sending it over to the secondary VM. This lockstep technology is how they are kept in sync. So as I said, they're starting the fault tolerance VM on the secondary side. It's basically the secondary VM. It'll take a few minutes. Now you'll notice down here, we now have a fault tolerance section that's appeared in our user interface. So at this point, it's showing fault tolerance status protected, fault tolerance state is enabled and running, and that secondary VM is online, and now I have a fully protected VM. So the virtual machine is now protected. With a click of a single checkbox, no new hardware, no new software, no new anything, we've turned on the highest level of availability there is. So when both VMs are operating, they appear externally as one VM. Same IP address, same MAC address, but if our primary virtual machine goes down for whatever reason, our secondary VM can instantaneously take over because VMware FT keeps them in sync. The best part is that users will not experience any downtime due to hardware failure. Let me go ahead and show you. So as a recap, basically from the previous session, we basically enabled fault tolerance on this VM right here. Okay. So if I go and look at the actual cluster and I do virtual machines, you'll notice I've got my primary side VM, my FT protected VM, and then of course I've got the secondary VM ready to go. So let's go ahead and go to the console of both those primary and secondary VMs, which I've previously set up already. So this is the primary console for the actual VM that's active and running. And this right here is going to be the console for the secondary VM. You'll notice right here where the title is. Okay. So now, if you'll notice that anything I do in this window happens simultaneously in the other window. The two virtual machines look exactly the same because the secondary is an exact replica of the primary. In fact, every instruction I execute in the primary will instantaneously get mirrored in the secondary one. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that here by, as I popped up this video and I move it around on the screen, you should see it happening on both the primary and the secondary. Obviously, this is the console for the primary that I'm in. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play on this video about vMotion. So now it's running here, and you'll see identically the same thing occurring on this console screen. Okay, so as you can see, all the instructions received by the primary virtual machine are also received and executed by the secondary virtual machine. The secondary virtual machine keeps in sync with the primary machine at all times. Okay. So now that we've got this environment set up, I'm going to go ahead and force the shutdown of the physical server where the primary VM is running. And we're going to go ahead and show you that this really works. Before I do this, I want you to remind you to pay close attention here, because it's going to happen so fast you're not going to know what hit you. All right. So I'm going to go back over to the primary side. I'm going to click on my PuTTY interface. I'm going to go ahead and log in to my ESX host. Yes. Log in as root. Okay. So now I'm basically going to force a shutdown on this ESX host because this is where the actual virtual machine is running. Okay. So let me go ahead and type reboot -F. So now you'll notice that this screen has basically stopped responding. Nothing's going on there. I can't click in there. That VM is essentially lost to me. However, inside of this one, let me go ahead and open up that window a little bit more for you. You can still see things that are functioning appropriately. Let's see, the movie is still running. Of course, the PuTTY session at this point has basically been hosed because we've rebooted the ESX host, so we can kill that. Say OK. So let's go ahead and go back into our interface here, and you'll notice that there it is. There's my ESX host. It's not responding. I had another VM running on there that wasn't so lucky to have a fault tolerance running on it. Okay, and of course that one's gone. So let me go up into the virtual machine summary, sort again. Okay, so basically there's my VM that's been taken over, and you'll notice that it's actually running on ESX24A here. So in the first part of the demo, you saw how easy it was to set up high availability fault tolerance. One click, couple of answers. Second part of the demo, you saw fault tolerance in action. And in the last section, okay, showed you how VMware removes any room for human error by automatically spawning a secondary, okay, when the primary dies. We're very excited to bring you this cost-effective and powerful yet simple functionality to our customers. Once again, VMware has fundamentally changed the way users think about high availability. The FT functionality will enable even mission-critical applications that require continuous protection to run safely on VMware.